It was on this day that our girl Chica experienced something she's never felt before. Confusion, skepticism, flustered, romantic tension she never thought she would be appealed by, yet also want to push back against. But goddamn, the misunderstanding between our boy, the president, Miyuki, and Hayasaka because she appears as a male butler when Chica's around at their residence is probably the greatest misunderstanding that this anime season is going to have. Not only because we got the glorious bloody nose, but because Hayasaka doesn't give a rat's ass, and that's fantastic. This episode, I think, represents everything that makes Kaguya-sama what it is and such a compelling and memorable show. To begin, you have, for the most part, a very hilarious, a very comfy, and a very amazing meme-worthy episode that just leaves you feeling impressed with its comedy design. But it also further fleshes out the emotional story that is Yu Ishigami, and I mean, seriously, this man has without doubt my favorite emotional points that this show has laid out, whether it was especially in season 2 to even what he views as a failure despite it actually being a major step in a character who was a slacker, a goofball who didn't care about his future. And as much as people may want to say, well, really, is changing your life for a girl really something that matters at that stage? This is a man who's floating by on F's his entire life. If that girl is making him actually study and want to impress her, let her do that, because goddamn, this life, I mean, the fact that he went up like 20 points in terms of like rankings in the entire school, that's actually pretty impressive for someone who's been flunking his entire life. There's no way you would have got to 50 the first time around unless he was an anime character with that magic luck. And I'm glad that instead of dumbing down you into being someone who is an anime character, who can just, if he puts his mind to it, everything works out. No. He's a pretty average guy who's going to have to work his ass off for probably many tests, and he's going to have to study for more than just a single test. You know, he's going to have to put in the effort day in and day out. And the fact that it actually crushed him, and the fact that you have probably the best wingman that I've seen this season, that being Kaguya herself, and the fact that she calls him out and says, you know, training gloves are coming off now, even though it's kind of frightening to think that those were training gloves. I'm glad that, you know, the student council, they generally do care for each other, right? There may be the flusterness, there may be the flirting, there may be the rivalries that maybe shake people to their core, but I think those moments really sell you on what makes the character arc so compelling. I am a little biased because I do think Yu has the most impressive character moments in the show, but I'm glad the fact that it's not just him doing it by himself. I'm glad different people are backing it, especially with season 2 when you have the president, right, and everything like that. I'm glad that Kaguya herself is continuing to have important moments, even if she does throw temper tantrums that leave me rolling. I'm not sure if I've ever mentioned it because it's not the first time I've seen this, but I absolutely adore the character design and the animation style they use sometimes. When Kaguya herself is freaking out, it reminds me of Peanuts, like Charlie Brown cartoons, where she'll just be like freaking out in such a way that it just reminds me of those classic, like something, the type of animation style you would see for a Charlie Brown Christmas or The Great Pumpkin, things like that. Absolutely hilarious, and they don't abuse it, but sometimes Kaguya just has those moments that I'm just like, she could be a Charlie Brown character, and that's one of the amazing styles that they continue to use for the overreactions. But I'm glad that we finally got a name drop in terms of what this season is based off of, which is ultra romantic, right? And I was surprised, but I actually kind of love the fact that the first one who kind of has that painted on them is Yu himself. I mean, out of everything that could be a will they, won't they, I wouldn't really put Yu as being the main romance interest of the season. I thought it would be, without a doubt, the president and vice president, right? But I love the fact that even though he doesn't necessarily say his confession out loud, we get inside his mind of where the confessions would go. And honestly, personally, I see where the first one's coming from in terms of being creepy, because if you were to just leave a rose or a different flower every day, and then if you somehow were able to piece it together, the first letter of each of the flower types would say, I love you, it is a little creepy because you don't know, is this a stalker, is this someone actually romantic? Though I did disagree with the second one, because he was talking about how, like, what if I showed, like, a photo album of myself, and then on the last page it would say, I want the next one to be of us. I actually thought that was sweet, because it would be weird if he's never talked to her. If this is just, like, a random crush he had, then yeah, that would be weird, because that's, like, your first introduction. But the fact that they actually have a connection, and they already have an established relationship of some sort, I actually thought that one was a little sweet, and I think even comparing, like, you know, Kaguya's cringe face to the necklace that one couple ended up having, I think it was either last week or the week before, Sometimes Kaguya, what she considers cringe is so weird because I know damn well that that would like melt the hearts of so many of what they're saying, though sometimes she is right and she hits it right on the nose. But it was nice to see because, you know, the idea of will they, won't they is a very fun thing that this show knows how to use better than most rom-coms. I might even go as far to say better than any rom-com in my opinion, because even though, you know, it will eventually get to those points, you also don't know when it comes to characters like you if that actually would reach somewhere. Because I know damn well Kaguya and Miyuki will someday get together in some capacity. But the idea of this girl is an interesting one because I do think chance that he could, because she is a genuinely nice person, and the fact that he clearly has passion enough to completely change his study habits, it would be interesting to see. It's not a matter of would they get married sort of a thing, but it is an interesting kind of conundrum that I haven't quite experienced in this show. But it'd be interesting because in a lot of ways, I think Ino and even someone like you have a genuine chance, even though they're so similar. I think, you know, the idea of opposites attracting is I think it's stupid personally because there's no way you can be opposites and be in a committed relationship your entire life. I just think you need to have more similarities than differences. So even though they continue to talk so much shit, I kind of feel like that would have been the natural connection someday, because even though they on a personality level are so similar that they butt heads, I also think eventually they could have overcame that hurdle, right? But maybe that is not something that is ever going to happen. Either way, like I love the fact that they have so many different paths they can take, even though at the core it is like the student council and the shenanigans they get up into. I think the idea of Chika sleeping over at Kaguya's house provided for one of the most insane phone calls, it may be the most insane phone call / kind of like text communication that they've ever had in this show. Because it's not even enough to just call up Miyuki randomly in the middle of the night. The fact that, you know, it has to be on video camera as well, as you have what seems to be Kaguya drunk, but it's just because she's such an old woman that if you go past 11 p.m., she basically is so sleep deprived, she's wobbly and wouldn't be able to operate a motor vehicle. But I love the fact that Chika just is like, I have no idea. I know something's going on. Tell me who. Then, of course, his sister has to join in. And I love the build-up because it didn't even cross my mind that obviously they would avoid it. It just always feels that way. They're going to avoid the confession. I just wasn't expecting how he would get away from it. Like, I thought maybe what would happen is, like, of course, Chika would clue in. But because sleep-deprived Kaguya is so wobbly, she won, and then maybe Chika would get up into some misbehaving shenanigans. But I love the fact that the person he's been texting online is, of course, the male butler, and just that confusion after Isaac already had such a complicated backstory. I think War Orphan was one of the things that happened. I just love the fact that, you know, it's such a big misunderstanding, and just that, like, deadpan bloody nose was the best way to tie it all together. One of my favorite things about Kaguya is how a simple joke can have lasting effects in future jokes and scenes. So I'm just imagining there's going to be so many side remarks from Chika towards Miyuki, and Kaguya's going to be oblivious because she's not going to remember any of that. I think it's going to provide for some insane comedy, but either way, this was without a doubt the best episode of Season 3 so far, and I'd actually put it up there with some of the best episodes across the board, especially when you compare some of the emotional moments in the previous season there. So let me know your thoughts down below. What do you hope to see with so many new things and possibilities that this episode revealed? Let me know down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you're new around here. So next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.